It's impossible to measure what Jeanne has meant to UHS and to the UT campus all these years. And I know I speak for everyone when I say that this is a very bittersweet moment. Saying goodbye to a friend, coworker, who's meant a lot to everybody. But we are very happy that Jeanne will have time now to kick back and travel and do the fun things that she has in terms of pursuing her new dreams. So looking back over Jeanne's career with UHS, we all have stories about special times with her, and at this point I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Melinda McMichael. She's our first speaker. Dr. McMichael has been a physician at UHS and worked closely with Jeanne for the past 29 years.
You're almost as old as that. 10 years. Okay. Well, I asked Jeanne if I could say a few words just to represent those of us who've known Jeanne and worked with her for a very long time. I first met Jeanne when I was a relatively new physician at the old student health service across the street, and she was in charge of staff development. The director at the time asked me if I would chair the quality assurance committee, and he told me there was not anything I needed to do. I just sat at the head of the table and said, meeting adjourned, and I said, okay, I can do that. Well, that changed when Jeanne asked if I would help her prepare the organization for our first accreditation as, I think, as an ambulatory care facility. It was Joint Commission. Okay. Anyway, Jeanne and I worked together that summer, and it's turned out to be a long working relationship and a long friendship. That summer was also the first time I learned how very difficult it is to tell Jeanne no when she asks you to do something. I know that some of you have had that same experience. So I eventually became medical director under Dr. Wire, who was the director at the time, and I left that position in 1991 to return to the clinic, and I swore that that would be the end of my administrative career. But just a few years later, Jeanne talked me into stepping into the job again on an interim basis. And I said, of course, yes, because you can't tell Jeanne no, somewhat reluctantly, and only until we could find a permanent director. And Dr. Spalding, wherever you are, thank you, thank you. But I realized once again I had a hard time telling Jeanne no. Now, most of you know the many changes that have taken place at University Health Service, or some of you new folks may not know. But just let me list a few. We wouldn't have this beautiful clinic and building without her leadership. She's been largely responsible for development of the SHAC program and our student volunteer program, our transition to electronic medical records, dealing with difficult budget cuts, staff reorganizations, our transition to insurance billing. The list goes on and on and on. And those are only things from the last few years. There were many of the years before that. Now, I'm not saying that Jeanne did all of this on her own. We all know that she didn't. But we were all part of the changes, and Jeanne led us through that. So I've been thinking about what is it exactly that makes Jeanne such a good leader. So I started making a list. I like to make lists. I started making a list of the attributes that I think make Jeanne a good leader. And here are some of the words I wrote down. Smart, insightful, visionary, compassionate, determined, thorough, obstinate, caring, determined, did I say determined? Organized, nurturing, and lastly, very determined. We could all add other things to this list. So in thinking more about this, I found a quote by a man named Warren G. Bennis, who has written several books about leadership. And I found a quote that I think describes Jeanne's style perfectly. So you can see if you agree. And here I'm quoting. Good leaders make people feel that they're at the very heart of things, not at the periphery. Everyone feels that he or she makes a difference to the success of the organization. When that happens, people feel centered, and that gives meaning to their work. Then that's the end of the quote. So I think that's the answer. She's made all of us feel important, all of us who work at University Health Service. And we're all part, we are all important. Sometimes we're part of the problem. We're always part of the solution. And we're always included. She hasn't allowed us to say no to her leadership, and for this we are all very grateful. Thank you, Jeannie. We owe you a great debt and wish you a wonderful retirement.
Well, it wouldn't be complete without something from us. But, you know, Jeannie, this is a time of change for you. This is a time of new avenues to explore, new hobbies to create, a time of saying, where have I been and where do I still need to go? It's just a time of magnificent change, and we in Women's Health felt like you needed a couple of tools. So, wait, Shelby, leave the room. It's simple. Okay. We knew you might need something for self-reflection. But you might also need something for self-inspection. So, we didn't want it to be incomplete. But we do have a little number. Okay. Get ready. You ready? Yeah. Hi. Jeanne's been working at USC.